In a world where digital currencies reign supreme, one cryptocurrency is poised to redefine the game, no? Litecoin's resurrection and resurgence is coming, and the Litecoin Forecast is your 24/7 guide to riding this silver surge. Join us as we stream continuously, analyzing every move, discussing macroeconomic trends, what's driving this bull market, what narratives will come into play as we move higher, and what we'll be watching for signs of a broad market top T. The Litecoin Forecast, illuminating the path to redemption, hosted by Litecoin, joining us now.
Yo, what's up? Eric, Vivaci, and MK. We're gonna have Nick in here to talk about his perspective. Had him on here before. I'm sure you guys remember. Was a couple months ago, I think. So let me check. Probably won't be too long. Yo, Matt D. We're gonna get Nick's technical perspective in a bit. I think his analysis is valuable. Won't be that long. Probably like 30 minutes. He did call this move down. Panic bot again. Nice. It does look very similar to our prior bottom, and we're seeing similar signs on the volume indicator here. It's trying to push higher. We do have quite a bit of shorts that could get squeezed. I mean, it already kind of happened in Bitcoin. It looks more imbalanced for Litecoin now. Litecoin's behind the rest of this market after it lost momentum. But it will be the last to win. Yeah, true. But I'm starting to see positive signs on the pair charts as well. I don't like Kraken for volume because it's so little. Ban Litecoin. Sonny, you got a lot of names. It's such weird. Price action against LTC or against BTC here. It is kind of like this though. Choppy sideways. 2 bumps. Bought a whole ounce of gold today. It's a lot, brother. Just waiting for Nick. I gotta put. Alright, send Litecoin to the price of gold, please. Stuck in this range. This is the longest amount of time Litecoin's been in this range. And it was also the longest amount of time it was stuck between like $40 and $100. The move out of this should be stronger. Yeah, this is accumulation, reaccumulation. If we can break to the upside here, hold this support, which it looks like probably will. I mean, testing it so many times, it's got to be more bullish than something like XRP that just pumps straight up. I would think. Oh, Nick is in here now. I was zoned out for a sec. I will add him real quick. I should be able to hear you, Nick. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, cool. How's it going?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing all right. A little disappointed by this.
What, the Trump thing, or?
No, just the retracement and kind of the I don't know if I'm disappointed by the Trump thing. It kind of was to be expected. The crypto reserve stuff.
I don't even know if that's over.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, these
It
pumps
doesn't
can
look like
last.
the kind of it doesn't look like the kind of setting where you'd say anything anyways.
Yeah, what do you think it is? Do you think it's all just grifting and like lobbying, paying for
The
this
reserve or
influence?
the crypto
Yeah,
reserve?
yeah, the crypto reserve announcement about Cardano and XRP.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I don't know if he actually plans on buying those like altcoins. If it was up to me, honestly, I don't think he should buy anything other than Bitcoin. But I honestly don't think they should hold a reserve for that anyways. So I'm kind of
Yeah,
against it, but honestly, I really like selfishly just kind of care about making money the rest of the cycle, because
yeah,
this
for sure.
last pullback was brutal on me, and I imagine it was brutal on most people. So
Brutal for everyone, man. Haven't seen sentiment for traders go that bearish at any point so far this cycle.
I think
Probably
someone showed the fear and greed, and then they kind of compared other times
the
of the cycle, and what was it? It was like just as bad as 2020. Yeah, and it was as bad as I think when FTX went under.
yeah,
Sorry.
AAII sentiment indexes in traditional markets were at like 2009 levels of bearish sentiment, 2022 lows
Yeah,
levels.
and like just going on CT, it's it seems like literally everybody is bearish. Even when they're saying they're not, I think most people are, or they're giving the bearish and the bullish scenarios now. I think majority of accounts are, and then there's just the perma bear account or perma bear and perma bull accounts that no matter what will only show
Yeah,
one side regardless. So I know for me it was tough, and I kind of expected, like somewhat expected, that we would pull back towards
yeah, you did post
the pitchfork. I don't know. You want me to share screen?
Yeah, you can share your screen and I'll pull yours up. But yeah, I saw some charts where you posted about this pullback. But going through it, it's like another thing, right?
Yeah, I
Experiencing.
know. I didn't even I mean, I sold some on the way up. Hang on, let me try to. What do I go to? Do I go to like settings or something to share screen?
It should be on the bottom. It should say like just share
Present.
present. Yeah.
Share screen. Oh, yeah. Look,
But yeah, it was brutal and almost. I de-risked literally at the bottom for my leveraged position that I entered 9 months
oh,
ago.
wait, oh, okay. At the bottom he did. So like what? Like
Basically,
what did it get to? Like 95 or
it
90?
was
I don't
like
know.
around 100 that I just paid back my margin loan. So
So I made a mistake. What did I do? I de-risked. I think I told you. I de-risked a certain amount, and I was going to use it kind of as play money, at least like short-term money, and I ended up
uh-huh.
buying ETH, thinking I was like, oh, it's pretty safe, like I'll just hold some ETH. I've been wanting to hold some ETH for a while, and that got hammered, and I sold it, and then what did I do? I bought some CRV, that got hammered, and I literally sold my CRV like near the lows. Was it today? I think it was
Earlier
yesterday.
today.
It was, yeah, just I did horrible on that bit of cash. But I also took some off on the way up to the most recent resistance for Litecoin. Like not it was like 111 or something on the way up. So I haven't been playing it well, even though like it's tough because I think like most people or most participants, we all have been kind of waiting for that breakout that wasn't happening for
Yeah.
Litecoin. And then it's like
Yeah.
you didn't want to sell, and in reality it was just like inverted greed, where
Yeah, it
instead of
was.
yeah, an obvious range where everyone should have been at least taking some off, maybe adding some, taking some off, playing a little bit with short term if they can. And I think most people probably jacked it up just as bad as we did, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Well, to me, I think if that crypto reserve announcement included Litecoin or just didn't happen, Litecoin could have continued to show strength. Potentially there was quite a bit of short open interest at the highs. A small amount of further relative strength could have pushed it above. It's hard to know what actually
Yeah,
happened.
I know. I mean, I even had like a good. I was looking at the LMACD, and I was looking at like how it was similar to a similar time in the range before, and then I was like, if this, I don't know what it was, if like 112 or something like that didn't hold, then it was going to drop back down to down near 91, and it did, and it was still expecting it, and then trying to get comfortable with expecting it, and then for it to happen, going through it, it was still tough. That was
Yeah,
what was it, 20 something percent it was down.
pretty much. I mean, from the highs. Do you have your? Did it work? It was like 27%, almost 30%
20.
correction.
Yeah. I
From
don't
I
know. Can you
think
see my screen now?
Oh yeah, let me share it. I had to add it to the stage. Okay, yeah, I can see it now.
All right. Well, I'll just go over Bitcoin real quick.
Yeah, it sounds good. What are
And
your thoughts here? So many people think it's the
yeah,
start of bear market, but
it so like I have different charts. If I was more prepared or if I was better using this platform, I'd pull them up real quick. But I had the thing is, you can find most of the charts. Like Tony the Bull is really good. He has a lot of the same charts, but there's a lot of people that kind of expected that, here, let me get which one of these? A lot of people expected the 5 wave, and it's a pretty obvious 5 wave.
yeah.
One. And I sat there and I measured everything out. And for example, like, so that's pretty obvious. And then if you pull up, let's see, you pull up the LMACD, you could even see it. We had a cross here. And then a lot of people noted that. I'm sure it shows up in the RSI too, but the bearish divergence. So you had almost like a clear 5 wave, and if you measure the fibs for each one, it pulls up a realistic
Extensions.
extensions. And then you even something that I pulled up. Let me just pull up one. So even if you sorry if you hear my dog. So even if you pull up like the measured move for this, so this is the bullish descending triangle because we took it from the lows. And you're able to pull the target. So if I pull the target and I extend it from the point of breakout, you can see that's the breakout target for this descending triangle. And it literally smacked it. So we had like the clear 5 wave, we have bearish divergence. And we have the top of this pitchfork that I've been using off pretty much since the lows. Get slapped, the target gets slapped, a clear 5 wave and everything. So I was looking at all this and I wasn't feeling pretty good up here. I still didn't do risk. But
yeah, it's hard even if you have all this evidence.
Right. But I still am optimistic that this is not the case. But who knows?
Yeah, I'm still optimistic too. I think equities should rally from here, and it'd be hard for me to imagine Bitcoin and crypto doesn't follow. Just with these crazy bearish sentiment index readings and the historical accuracy.
Yeah, because the thing is, I also don't really use LMACD or divergences or anything like that. It's just something I kind of peeped out, and I do sometimes on the longer time frames. But It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that I really base the trading on, but it's stuff that I'll look at on occasion if I'm kind of confused. Likewise with Litecoin, it turned out working out pretty good on this last flush. But like looking at these fibs, you can see these fibs, these extensions have done really well. So here's the coordinates. Let's see. So this low to this high, initial high to this low. You see after that, the fibs become a reality. You see we topped out at the 23. Then we topped out again at the 38. And we topped out again at the 50. And then we kind of overran the 618 and topped out as well. And it's possible for it to top out the 618. That's a realistic target. But for me, like especially this resembles a lot of the 2013 cycle as well. I don't have it on this chart, the price action or the data. But we also tapped out at this 782 in 2013 as far as the extensions go. So that's something that I've been looking for, and it's still something I'm looking for. But whether it comes to fruition, we'll see. But
yeah, Rick
anyways,
was comparing that to this to 2013, and he recently flipped bearish too, or is very nervous.
yeah, I know you are too, right? Pretty committed to the timing of like what, next month or this month or next month being the top?
Yeah, originally I was, but we'll see now. I'm not as convinced that has to be the top.
It's tough too because I think we've discussed it before, but you can see it's kind of prevalent, and it's something that I think I noticed around here because I was using fib time series or fib time extensions, and I was kind of monitoring because it was working out pretty well. But as time went on, this hasn't been a real sharp move. Everything's kind of taken a lot longer. Everything's grinded out sideways, as far as being a move that topped out with the timeline that a lot of people had. I mean, I would say if they're going to stick to that timeline, that we already topped.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's something I'm not really like, I don't use time that well. And the guys that I know that use time the best are usually the Ichimoku guys.
Yeah, it's true.
Those guys, those guys are really good. And the couple of the guys that I followed that seem to be the most prevalent or the most accurate, they seem like, or they think that we're in good shape still. So, I mean, basically, as long as these lows hold.
For sure. Yeah, well, I agree. I follow two Ichimoku guys in Japanese trading. The Dr. Cat guy and Joe Matoshi.
Joe? Yeah. Same. Yeah, I'll talk to the Joe guy a little bit here and there. And
I talked about Litecoin.
Pretty accurate.
He thought, at least when I talked to him, that Litecoin would have a similar move to Doge of last cycle. That was his expectation. He had posted about it years and years ago.
Was this Cat or Crypto Says?
Crypto Says, the Joe guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I know that Cat dude is thinking Litecoin will struggle and will make new lows against Bitcoin. I'm not convinced by that.
Yeah. Again, I still only go based on mine, but
same.
For me, I struggle when we start ranging sideways. Like this area, I can go back in my messages. Like I can go back with my messages with Rick and some other people where I start struggling and I start talking it out with certain people. I remember, I think around here I was struggling because it like time-wise, it wasn't lining up. Right here, I believe, again, it's usually right there. Like when we're hitting the double top on these on this pitchfork is when I struggled. And again, you can see we double top. Look at it now, double top on the pitchfork, double top on the pitchfork, double top on the pitchfork. But again, for me, just to do the minimum of the measured move, the obvious wave 5, the obvious bearish divergence, right at the top of the pitchfork, right at the 618. I have a hard time believing that. And I know when we were over here, I was expecting that we could pull back, and I was hoping we'd hold this one and not have to test this. But we, again, like same here. I think I expected, so somewhere around here, I called the move up to this pitchfork and this fib. And again, I was expecting us to hold this pitchfork before the fib. And again, this time I was expecting us to hold this pitchfork level, and we didn't, and we ran a little bit lower, which is on par with every time I end up struggling with like a consolidation, struggling here, I end up looking at different people's analysis and chatting with different people. And so far it just goes like one support less than I anticipated. But with this one, I think I kind of always knew it was a possibility, because you can see we topped at this pitchfork, and for us to hit that top and then kind of this support was just kind of no man land. You know, I mean, there's nothing, we didn't touch it before. If I extend it left, it doesn't hold that much weight. So for me, for us to come down and test this is as low as I realistically want to see us go. Like I don't, and as far as like clear waves, say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let's say this is like a midterm correction in wave 5, I wouldn't want to see it go this low. So the fact that we topped or bottomed here wasn't a surprise. And for me now, looking at it, I don't want us to breach last week's low. So that was something last night I was looking at, and something that I'm not surprised that we bounced back up. And I wouldn't be surprised if we ran, what is this? Probably all the way up towards this last week's high, maybe ran this trend line. I wouldn't be surprised if we did that this week leading into the crypto conference. So I wouldn't be surprised if this weekly candle comes all the way up, slaps this, and where we go after that, I don't know. I know that I am going to de-risk some, or I have shorter term positions. Like I hold, they expire not this Friday, but next Friday, I hold MSTX, which is like the leveraged master ETF option. And I bought that when we were dipping down here initially, and it went up, it came back down, but I know it's up. I don't know what's up, like a decent amount now still, but I plan on selling that and maybe de-risking a little bit of Litecoin and letting it play out a little bit more. But
Gotcha. Yeah,
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that we held. I'm not surprised that we're bouncing now, and I wouldn't be surprised if we continue back up and test some of this resistance before coming back down. Because you can look, we came down and then we breached, well, this is the bottom, so this is when it started, right? So we initially breached that, and then from then on out, it's what was expected. So we came up, hit that, and then we hit one higher and held. And now if you look, we're one higher and holding. So yeah, I mean, as far as short-term action goes, I don't want us breaching last week's low. And I wouldn't be surprised if we come down a little bit more or whatever, but not bad. Maybe into tomorrow's open. And like I said, I am expecting we rally back up to about 97. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Thursday, but by the weekend, because I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more rumors coming out and more speculation leading into the White House Crypto Summit. So yeah, I'm looking to de-risk some right there.
Gotcha. Yeah, a lot of people I think got thrown off by the pump and massive retracement, but it kind of just looks like the S&P 500.
Right.
It hasn't done anything crazy.
I think everyone blamed Trump. Trump's one of Trump's kids, Eric Trump. But yeah, none of that really mattered. It's obviously, what happened in the overall market, equities.
Yeah, for sure. Short term.
But yeah, that pretty much, this was bad, right? Everyone was feeling this, but this pretty much broke a lot of people. I think that this direct fall right after is what broke sentiment.
Yep.
At least
I would agree. But that should be bullish divergence, right? You have lower sentiment, higher low in price. Like, I think its sentiment was way more extremely bearish on the retrace of that than it was on the lower low.
Right. And then everyone, I'm sure you can draw the ABC here for this correction. But I don't know. I don't use Elliott wave that much, and
Yeah, me neither. There's so much hindsight Elliott wave counts, and that people are always redrawing them all the time. You know, and having
Yeah,
alternate count, it doesn't. I don't think it helps that much. Maybe some people that really use it all the time, but it's helpful for like a general outline.
there's some
And that,
people that do it really well, but you see that they're often wrong or corrects more and they redraw it. Just it's kind of just like any analysis, but to me it doesn't hold a lot of weight, but I do kind of pay attention to like an overall not breaching into what's this about 74K.
yeah. What do you think about Litecoin here? It's kind of in this classical rectangle type structure, just testing the bottom of this horizontal
Yeah,
support. I
something I
really hate like pumping straight into resistance because I think the odds of reversal are pretty strong, and I would apply the same thing to dumping. Like this move down looks corrective to me.
yeah.
Um,
I just did that thing. I did this last time we talked. I did this weird thing with the mouse where now I can't adjust it.
oh, it's okay. Well, you can see
Here.
the chart. I don't know if you need to fix it on your end.
Yeah, hang on, retry. I don't know what this is gonna do, but here I'm gonna close that.
I
You
might
still
have
see
to
my screen?
No, I'll have to re-add it. I might have to click present again.
What time is it over there?
It's 12:14 a.m., but it's all good.
You have a weird schedule, right? You'll like wake up and stream and go back to sleep and stream and
Yeah,
wake up in the middle of the night.
yeah. Well, for the Rickus interview, I woke up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Um, that was the only time. Okay, cool. We can see it now.
Oh, you can see it now. Okay. So like the most important fibs, I could do fib extensions off the lows. But for me, I think I've been more obsessed with this structure. Um, and I've been focusing more on these fibs because they work out pretty dang well. You can see like most of the range here has been between, let me change this to make it more visible. Most of this range, since we kind of had that acceleration, has been between the 618 and the 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, what is it? Someone I respect a lot and I don't listen to often enough is Credible Crypto.
Mm-hmm.
And he posted that he's looking for, what is it?
Like
Basically,
$70. But he just posted high
yeah,
time frame demand where uh like there's all I don't know, horizontal support there. That was resistance for multiple years. Yeah, that like
right. He basically is expecting to see this top and this bottom and drawing that range, and he's expecting a flush down, right?
yeah.
Something low like that, which is possible because if Bitcoin retraces and goes down to where he's expecting it, which is what like 60s or low 70s, high 60s, low 70s, which is a possibility. That's certainly where Litecoin will go, and a lot of alts will get crushed. And
For
I
sure.
I won't hold for that. I'll hopefully play it well enough to de-risk to where I can get back in down there, but I think that'll kind of break a lot of people's view of the cycle.
Yeah, it would for sure. That's why I de-risk too, just for the potential, like that possibility. If we did break, it actually removed your screen. Oh, he got disconnected. I think it disconnected.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Did I accidentally click a button or something, or did it just DC you?
Yeah, I think it just DC'd me. Or I
Okay,
had error with my, I don't know, some with my internet. Let's go back to share
I
screen.
see. But I think if you're bullish Bitcoin here, it's hard to imagine Litecoin breaking support.
Yeah, I agree. Like for me, I want to see it hold the higher low on that weekly for Bitcoin. If it doesn't, then I think I got to get out. You know, I'm not going to be holding anything. And if I get
Yeah.
shooken out right before it moves, then so be it. Unfortunately, you know,
Yeah,
I
that's
can't.
what sucks.
Yeah, I can't sit there and let. I can't get my main bullish case basically invalidated and continue to just hold. I did that. I did that up here, and then added more money in here, and you know, and then traded around with Bitcoin Cash and Dogecoin and Litecoin, and was able to build back up. And now I'm primarily hold Litecoin, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to sit there and hold the bag again. You know.
Yeah, for sure. I luckily saw the top from on-chain stuff in 2021. Those signals seem like they're going to be less reliable, and for Litecoin, I can't even tell anymore because the on-chain data is all messed up from MWeb. So it's harder for me. I have to rely on technical analysis now. But I also, even though fundamentals are like disgraced in this space, I have a longer term view that Litecoin and Bitcoin will converge in network activity as they're kind of doing already, and price. And so it's just such an extreme relative undervaluation to where I see it in 5-10 years that I'm comfortable with my spot position potentially holding, because I think there's a possibility, even if we get a bear market in a lot of these like casino tokens, that we can see some like counter trend strength, because I don't know, just my macro view of where we're headed over the next few years. I'm
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. Downside risk, I don't know. Like longer term, if we did enter a bear market, what do you think for um
The future of the space, or for Litecoin, or for utility coins?
for just like the broader market? Because my view is that a lot of these can get washed out. Like the vast majority of the market a year from now could be down 90%, and then other things up 1,000%. I feel like there will be talk of new cycles, where we have isolated rallies in a small few coins. It's hard to imagine that
Yeah,
if equities are fucked, but I think it's
I've had a
possible.
I've had a theory for a long time with all of this, that the correlation between crypto and equities will break when we get regulatory clarity. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these coins, like Litecoin, is one of the more extreme examples, that have had this massive multi-year consolidation phase that haven't really participated with Bitcoin. I think a lot of these coins, once there's regulatory clarity, and a lot of these utility coins that actually show real use case,
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be undervalued regardless of what equities do. And like, if Bitcoin is truly, or similar Litecoin is truly digital gold, digital silver, and equities take a dump, and we have what a lot of people are hoping or expecting, like a commodity super cycle, I
Mm-hmm.
would think, you know, the commodities of crypto will do well, because like digital gold, digital silver, and a lot of these utility coins that have been in these multi-year, you know, consolidations and whatnot, could rally, even though they're basically like crypto's actual equities. Because for me, I don't see, I see no value in meme coins. You know, I see no
Mm-hmm.
value in like majority of crypto. But I think a lot of these utility coins, or maybe some of the AI and whatnot, I think a lot of those coins are and can be extremely undervalued. And I think, as far as people putting like a future value on them, I think it'll be hard. And usually when things like that happen, things trade in the extreme forward value, and we
Mm-hmm.
get like a bubble in that way. But I've
For
been kind of
sure.
hoping and waiting for all this to happen. So everything's been
Yeah.
kind of going how I want it to go. and I've been kind of expecting, like I've had a theory that equities will kind of top out and crypto will continue. At least the coins that actually have value. At least the coins that are actually like similar to real businesses. That would
Hmm.
be equities, and then any of the crypto that are actual commodities.
For sure. Yeah, that's what I think is possible too. They should trade if crypto or if like Bitcoin, the value proposition is going to represent, I don't know, 10% of the world's money. It makes sense that it's trading at 100K. I just think the whole market's kind of offsides, thinking Bitcoin will scale like gold, or that it's, Bitcoin's going to continue to dominate, when the opposite is true on the monetary side. Just looking at the last 7-8 years of market share on the monetary side, Litecoin's the only proof of work chain that's increased on a relative basis against BTC. It's at like 70% on average day over day of Bitcoin's users. They're a lot lower value transactions, but if my thesis is right and we see congestion on the chain, if we get another rally in Bitcoin, I think long-term holders from 2017, 2021 all take profits, can rush to the train pretty quickly. That would drive transaction fees up, as in prior cycles, and Litecoin is the only chain that's historically imported those excess transactions. So it would actually pass Bitcoin and users. And you can get the narrative of like 0.25. It's a very extreme
Oh
price
yeah, I
target
used to
in
always.
relation to Bitcoin,
It is, yeah.
but it's way more believable now to me, even though price is down, because in 2017 when that was a narrative, the network activity wasn't even close to Bitcoin's. But now it is close, so it makes more sense to me now, even though the market thinks it's crazy, than it did
Yeah,
back then.
no, I know. There's a lot of things that kind of point at this being like the perfect storm for Litecoin.
Yeah, we just have
For a lot
to.
of tokens. I think one of the other things is what is it called? Tokenization of assets, and like the tokenization basically of the whole financial market, like equities and everything. I think that's another, like, say we get good regulation and we see real growth, and I think even if, say, equities topped out, like how undervalued would it be if they started the real process of tokenization? Like that whole narrative around that alone could send a lot of these coins much,
Yeah,
much,
for
much
sure.
higher. Yeah,
That's a narrative
regardless,
that
no?
appeals to people every cycle. Yeah, and even in bear markets, you always have a bull market somewhere, right? Crypto needs to, and it is already starting to do that. It used to be everything rallied, but
Right, with
just like what
Bitcoin.
happened, yeah, just like what happened in equities. Like you can have a bull market in some things and a bear market where things go to zero at the same time.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think because we've had the lack of regulation, we haven't really seen the market mature in that manner. Like to me, it makes no sense that the market follows, or majority of the crypto follows what Bitcoin's doing. Like no,
yeah,
it shouldn't be like that. Like you don't see like equities following gold, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. It's so
So
the way we classify all of crypto doesn't make sense. Like Bitcoin and altcoins, we'll see a total
no,
change in classification of crypto assets.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, I think all these similar to how equities is, are like with the
Yeah,
different asset classes. I
right.
think that's eventually where we'll go. But I think that's why, like, I think a lot of people are overly bearish at the moment, and no one's really like excited or speculating what could come from the White House crypto summit. At least not on my feed. I don't see anyone talking about that. I think everyone's kind of just in a deep state of fear, and no one's
Yeah.
speculating on that. But
Well,
as far as like the crypto market as a whole, I think the biggest catalyst is a clear regulation.
hmm
I
yeah,
think that
for
that's
sure.
huge, because that's kind of basically setting up the framework of why we think the market is so offsides, or why we think the crypto market as a whole doesn't make sense. It'll kind of push it in that direction to start being more similar to how equities are structured. And if the future is equities are tokenized, then a lot of this will blend in. They'll kind of just merge together. But I mean,
Oh yeah,
it's
then you
just
could have
weird.
trading pairs of Bitcoin against equities, right? Or Litecoin against equities. It'd probably
Right.
be more popular, and that would drive demand for the underlying cryptocurrency too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So I'm excited. I'm excited for the future still. But I think as far as the recent price action, I think it's just kind of it scared a lot
depressing.
of people. It's scared a lot of people that are looking at past cycles, and that's another thing that I've always been obsessed with. But it's something I know I shouldn't have been, because it's something that left me holding the bag. In 2022, is because I came in, with an equity background and commodities, and then I started looking at crypto like it was something different. Like, oh, there's a 4-year cycle, there's this, there's that. And none of that's, I never cared. I never looked at any of this stuff. I just looked at price action. Like, for example, if I was just trading stocks, which I did for a long time, I pretty much just had SPY up all day. And I was watching SPY, and I had that charted, and I was looking for good risk versus reward levels on individual stocks. And I think that's how it should be. And I'm hoping, with a clear regulatory environment, that's how things begin to go.
Yeah, I think that will be the case. So I agree with you. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know. We're in like such crazy times from a macro perspective.
Right.
That it's like max fear and uncertainty. So
Yeah, it really is. And like you were saying, the levels we're at now, it's like bear market levels. And I don't know. Personally, I've been happy with like the meme apocalypse that's happened. Like I think as far as people chasing to safety and what they'll look for, like what they'll run to, especially with regulation coming, it's kind of what I think most of us that have held Litecoin and other Dino coins have been waiting for. And for me, I know you do, and I know Rick does, and there's a lot of people I respect that do it, but I don't really pay attention to correlations. Like, if I'm just charting Bitcoin, I'm charting Bitcoin. If I'm charting Litecoin, I'm charting Litecoin. Fortunately, most of the cryptos still follow Bitcoin, so I have to chart Bitcoin and Litecoin. But maybe in the
yeah,
future
it can
that
break
diminishes. Yeah.
anytime. I just think Bitcoin is trading at the highest speculative premium ever. So like its price, I look at, just like I came from looking at like price earnings multiples on stocks, I do the same thing with cryptocurrencies. The only thing you can look at is its like total network activity and what percentage of that is actually real versus speculative. And Bitcoin's trading at like 10 times higher than its all-time high in terms of a premium over its actual monetization level. Where Litecoin's trading at 10 times cheaper than it's ever traded at. So it's crazy because to me, Litecoin has way more growth. It really is just Bitcoin. To me, it's a Bitcoin chain. That's how I always thought Bitcoin would scale, through multiple implementations of the same tech. It's open source. It's really just about network effects. They kind of scale like cities, and you'll see arbitrage between like chains, like security for cost. If one chain's too expensive to settle on another, there won't be this obsession over, oh, I must get paid in Bitcoin. Just like people don't obsess over getting paid in dollars or euros. At some point that will happen. And then speculators should reprice that most likely future, because it's already happening. But it's so surprising to me that the market is just so infatuated with a single chain, when if you look under the hood and its network activity, it doesn't at all support the price. It's like a stock trading at 1,000 times
Yeah,
earnings.
well, it's weird because it's kind of just more based on the narrative around it.
Yeah,
Like,
it
at
is.
least like, what is it, Larry Fink with BlackRock? Ever since he flipped his opinion and started pushing Bitcoin, he's very clear on what he says it is. He says it's digital gold. It's a safe haven, a worldwide safe haven. And to me, and my theory regarding Litecoin, because it's different from you, but like my quote unquote fundamental case for being bullish Litecoin long term is that it is the silver to Bitcoin's gold. And for me, like, I think if we're heading towards more of, like, say, a commodity super cycle,
Yeah.
I think it's vastly undervalued. But I mean, a lot of people have thought the same about silver, but there's at least been pretty gnarly silver rallies. So even if that's
For
not
sure.
the technical fundamental case or whatever, I think
Hmm.
Litecoins absolutely do if the scenario, where everyone pays attention to Bitcoin as gold and we get the boomer money.
Yeah, well, that is the like largest pool of capital is the boomer money. They have most of the wealth, and that narrative could appeal to them. So right now, we just had like really young crowd with a small amount of money pumping meme coins on no volume. But imagine a tiny market cap asset like Litecoin with the most restricted supply setup and relative undervaluation it's ever had. If it has boomer money heading into it, it will be pretty insane. But yeah, no, I agree with your commodity super cycle. I just think the difference between silver and gold is gold and silver were effectively demonetized when we had the gold standard, and I think
Right.
it's less likely that the government will be trusted with a Bitcoin reserve to issue paper dollars against Bitcoin and say, hey, it's backed 1-to-1 with Bitcoin, just trust us, because that's the reason the gold standard failed. Once you strip people away from their money, they don't have any protection against inflation. They have to trust the government. And then eventually the government just decides to print more, and you can't audit it. You can't audit the paper supply. And I
Yeah.
think we're in such a weird point where governments are way more indebted than ever and trust governments less, that, if that's tried, it will fail. And I actually think these can be monetized. Um,
Yeah.
and
I
if that's
think.
the case, then Litecoin should head to like way higher against BTC over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts about gold, and I think that's why. Well, personally, I love gold, and I do think long term it'll be important. But for me, like, I guess my conspiracy theory that I've had regarding all this is that um, Bitcoin will be pushed as digital gold, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be used as a proxy to get, say tokenization of all assets. It seems like just a ploy for them to get more control, for us to own less and them to own more. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, the long-term goal would be a CBDC, and basically getting everyone, including the boomers, used to get on board with crypto and the
Mm-hmm.
blockchain and all that, and all about Bitcoin, and for them to believe in that narrative. But
Yeah, I think that's true too. Probably will happen. That's the incentive for the government to do that, to make people believe in the narrative and trust them and just use their
right,
version of Bitcoin, and you can believe in the value prop because the price is going up, but realistically
yeah.
it's
Yeah, I
not
have a
there.
more pessimistic, long-term view where I think all the currencies are kind of screwed, and I don't think Bitcoin's like going to save anybody, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
more like everything's headed towards. I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime, but a one world currency. That's kind of where I think things are headed. But it's kind of like where I'm just
Yeah,
viewing the next X amount of years and
for
where there's a
sure.
big opportunity, and that's where I kind of landed on Litecoin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, silver's market cap's what, like 1 trillion, 2 trillion?
Is it that high?
I think so. So it's like way closer in relative valuation, even though it's demonetized. So it's April 2024 is 1.5 trillion, and what's gold's market cap, like 15? So it's way
Yeah, I
closer.
remember. What is it? I think GCR says he's not ready to sell this cycle until Bitcoin flips gold. And I like looked at what that would. Yeah, it would. Bitcoin would have to go like astronomically high, and gold would have to retrace. It'd have to be like somewhere down in the narrative where people are looking at like gold's useless, and Bitcoin is the digital gold, and it is the only countable gold for a lot of reasons, like stuff like basically trusting nations on the accountability of how much gold they have and all that. There's a lot of reasons why gold doesn't work, and I think that
Yeah,
is where we're headed, but it's also not something that just happens overnight. So I think a lot of this stuff where everyone's paying attention to 4-year cycles and this is what's supposed to happen, this is what happened last time. I think we might be in to something. I remember I charted something a long time ago. I think it was like Microsoft, where basically like there's like some point in the chart where it loses its volatility and it kind of just grinds higher. And I think that's something that will end up happening to Bitcoin.
For sure.
I think all this stuff probably will happen and all these narratives will play out, but it's not like, oh, it's going to happen and play out perfectly within a 4-year cycle and liquidity cycles and whatnot. That's why I personally, I don't like pay attention to correlations. I know my friend I grew up with that trades, and he's all about, he mainly trades Forex now, but he's all about correlations. And I know Rickus is all about correlations and liquidity cycles and things like that. But I mean, I have opinions, like my fundamentals, not real fundamentals, but you know, theories or whatever of where we're headed, and then I just kind of pay attention to price. And because I know there's a guy I follow. You follow X-Force Global on Twitter?
Yeah, I've seen his analysis. I don't follow him, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I think he thinks we're in like a longer term triangle or ABCDE pattern where we're going to come down lower, and he just plans on accumulating for years and years. And I followed him and known him for years now, and he's fairly accurate, and he's really good on long term trades and accumulating and whatnot. So I do think Litecoin may be like that, but I don't want to sit there and hold it if the E is going to drop down, you know, down sub low 60s or whatever that is. I don't want to hold for that, you know. I want to keep like a really long-term view of that or whatever, but personally I'd like to extract some money out of the market, so enough, you know, to where I can be comfortable buying down lower.
Yeah, exactly. I think all of us want to do that. It's just so hard in this market because if it does break higher, it can pump massively in a short amount of time, and so de-risking
right
can be extremely painful.
FOMO.
Yeah,
and then, so, I mean, how many times did we get the opportunity to do it up here? I know all of us were probably looking at it, or you're probably popping streams up when we're getting close to breaking.
Yep.
And so many times it's just been nice little range. But yeah, similar to how you have drawn out, we're kind of in this weird looking ascending triangle that has heavy wicks, you know, taken to the top and the bottom side. And that, for me, that's all drawn out. Like, we have the obvious resistance from just this range we're in with the fibs. You know, not much bodies above it, mainly wicks. Same thing on the fib, mainly wicks below. But to me, I pay more attention on the structure that's created from different support and resistances kind of overlaying each other. Like, we have the fib channel, or we have the fibs here, that pretty good resistance and support. But to me, what works a lot better is actually the channels on Litecoin. For me, at least, if you're looking at extracting support and resistance at extremes. So for example, like, we have this channel, which is this is just it's a bullish channel because it's from the lows. I did it again, whatever. Anyways, we came up, since it's came out, we came up, we popped above, didn't quite make it to there, but I mean, $200 has kind of been my target. And for me, like, short-term Litecoin, just like not the higher low. I do want the higher low still to be in play, but I want us to hold above this right here, this line. So that, I want it to hold above here. I want this week to close with the body above it, and then I would expect to move back up. And I don't think it's just an instant breakout. I'm not expecting this to end immediately, you know. So for me, just like I was expecting Bitcoin to run, what is it, about 97 next, I'm expecting this to pop back up, run somewhere in here. I didn't chart it out, and then come back down and eventually break. I know a lot of people are expecting this to be a very long consolidation, like similar consolidations in Bitcoin, but I'm not expecting it to be that long. I'm expecting it to be more like mid-wave for Bitcoin. So I would think the next move is to $200 around there for Litecoin. and I will to risk some here. I know a lot of people want it to be like an XRP-esque move straight to the highs. I don't know. I think there's so much baggage in this long-term range that I think I'd kind of have to sell a decent amount here to risk a good amount, kind of watch the pattern, see if we can get some consolidation and some resolve. If not, I'll probably put orders in back towards the top of this range. Like I would, it depends though. If action comes up and it comes back down and retraces and tests the top of this range earlier, then I wouldn't expect an instant dump from here back down to say this Fed. Maybe then we can get that rally, but it all kind of unfortunately still depends on Bitcoin. So
for sure, yeah. What do you think of the LTC BTC chart?
Why don't you pull up that chart?
Okay.
Yeah, let me stop sharing.
It's pretty weird to me. I don't know what to think of it, to be honest.
Actually, you know what? I charted this out. I stopped sharing because it's stupid. I did that again. I wouldn't be able to pull it up. Here, you chart it, and then I'll pull it up and chart it and share it after you're done.
I can just give it to you. I don't even know what to make of it. It looks odd. If you were to look at prior bottoms of LTC BTC, it doesn't look anything like what we've seen in the past in 2017 or 2020. 2021 we had it like a failed breakout. It was the end of the cycle before Litecoin even had a chance to run against Bitcoin. I pay a lot of attention to the volume-based indicators like CMF. I don't see a lot of people use them. But I think it's been pretty accurate when you see positive net buy volume come in during consolidation, or you see bullish divergence when price is going down. We've seen quick reversals nearly every time we see bullish divergence in CMF. But the structure of this chart just looks weird. We're getting close to this rising trend line here. I think we can bounce off of it. And honestly, just the way the LTC USD chart looks, it looks very similar to how we bottomed here and rallied against the rest of the market in February. I would hope that the monthly doesn't close like this and that we can see a pretty strong reversal. We still have like the whole month.
Yeah.
It's only 5
No, I
days
would
again.
anticipate, like, if we hold this higher low, even if we bounce to 97, Litecoin will run
'Cause
against
Bitcoin,
BTC.
yeah, it doesn't have much upside from here realistically, and even if like when I would expect if it starts to reverse here that we'd go all the way back to the range highs.
You know what's
Right,
weird is like I feel like everyone talks about Bitcoin dominance and its chart and how it is obviously continuing higher, but I feel like it's so hard because it's being compared to so many cryptos that are just garbage,
Yeah, and
So
and ETH is such a huge weight in this chart because it was such a large market cap.
right,
That it's like an inverted ETH BTC chart to me.
yeah. To me, I don't know. It doesn't hold that much weight,
Yeah, I don't
and
like it. And plus, yeah,
I think
there's a
it's
lot of
kind of just
illusory stuff.
yeah, it's kind of just showing the state of the market as far as like the market hopefully getting to a state where it's more mature and majority of the cryptos are just kind of useless ones. So you just go to zero or they get regulated out of existence, which is awesome to me. I'm
Well,
happy with that.
every cycle, this was just ETH BTC running really hard, right? It was 2017 led by ETH from a value of 0 to
Oh, it's
multiple hundred billions.
because it's weighted primarily based on the market cap, with the ETH being so large.
Yeah, ETH ran from 0 to like multi-$100 billion, what was it, $100 billion market cap or something in 2017.
Yeah,
Slightly
it'd be
underperformed 2020.
I'd be interested more in like a different average, like a Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin dominance, but like say Bitcoin dominance versus a select amount of Dino and utility coins, things that show actual value outside of speculation.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
think comparing it to the coins most similar to Bitcoin, the ones that are competing with it for market share. And the same with ETH, like an ETH index against Solana and all these other proof of stake things like Cardano. ETH relative dominance within its actual market sector, which is basically like casino tokens primarily. So all of those gambling type platforms where you can mint your own coins should be compared against one another.
Right.
Same for proof of work chains. But yeah, you can, if you want to show the LTC BTC chart. I just don't. I don't know. It
Yeah.
looked really strong until this breakdown on the monthly time frame.
Yeah. Whenever you want, I pulled it up.
Yeah. Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah. So for me, this is probably the only thing I've done with charting for this, and I did it a long time ago. I think I've done it almost 2 years ago, where I was looking for this thing. So basically, and the channel's not even drawn correctly technically, because it would be from that point to this point. But so far it's worked well, and it's something I've paid attention to and kind of waited for this flush. So I think I started, I don't know where it was, somewhere around here, something. I started charting it. Then I was waiting for the flush below, because mainly I could, damn it, I was comparing it to 2017. So I was waiting for basically this channel that plays out, a flush, and then a rally up towards the upper range of the channel. And similarly, we got this flush, but it hasn't been just a straight rally. And that, again, this is where I think that the market's kind of maturing. And also, I mean, I feel like the Dino utility coin kind of thing didn't really start gaining traction until probably around here. So
Yeah.
like, this is when people, and then this big flush is obviously everything flush. So I'm not looking at it like we need to have this straight rally up to the top. I think it may be more gradual and a little bit more sideways, but I am still expecting that kind of, where is it? A big run against Bitcoin, and as high as we go is obviously dependent on how high Bitcoin goes. But that's what I've
Yeah, that
been,
makes sense.
yeah, that's what I've been monitoring.
I'm confused how the doctor guy thinks we would make new lows. I mean, it's possible, but the bottom, this like longer rounded bottom with
Right.
heavier divergence on all the volume indicators I look at, and given the fundamental stuff I look at, I just find it hard to imagine we
I mean,
break
that's
the new lows.
basically, yeah, that would basically mean that we'd have this big fallout to, which he doesn't think is going to happen. I don't think. I think he's pretty bullish on Bitcoin.
Yeah, he is.
Like, I think he thinks the lows are probably in, at least the local lows, and he's pretty bullish from here on up. So I don't know. But again, those guys I just recently started following because, like I said, when I struggle when Bitcoin starts ranging. So that's when I'll tend to kind of seek people out that do well in ranges. And so that's why probably some of the guys I like the most is like Castillo trading. I got led to the Crypto Says guy, and he recommended the Dr. Cat guy or whatever. But I don't understand what they're talking about. I just gotta pay attention to what they're doing, and I've thought about kind of learning it. But for the most part, I kind of stick to what I know, and
for sure.
I don't look at it like that. But I think for me, if Bitcoin corrects harder, like I would expect maybe we go back down lower, but also at the same time, if we correct and kind of invalidate that wave 3 high, then I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just kind of the new market dynamic where things are happening a lot slower and things are changing far more than people realize, including myself. It's a possibility. Maybe Like I said, maybe I just will get shaken out right at the end, right before it happens. But
Yeah, that's what would, it's max pain, but you have to do what you think is best at the time. Markets are so hard.
and it's so hard because the reality is you know, you feel it when you should be taking some off, de-risking a little bit, getting some cash on, so you could buy back lower, and that's the way. That's pretty much the real way for you to build safety against some of these nastier flushes. You know, outside of having a really, really good entry, which I don't necessarily on Litecoin. I had an entry in pretty low, but like I said, I've sold my whole Litecoin bag. I've played Doge, Bitcoin Cash. Honestly, I've done the worst on Litecoin. Like I've done really well on Bitcoin Cash and Doge, but I always end up kind of rushing into spot because I didn't want to miss out on the big move, and a lot, like just for the reason I had it charted like this, where I expected that really rapid move. We didn't get, you know, because I was really paying attention to 2017, but as time has gone on, you know, I've kind of learned not to do that, and I learned that's why I got burned last bull run, because I wasn't in crypto until that dip in 2021 or whatever, and I bought a Litecoin and I was up a few 100% or whatever, ended up bag holding majority of it, and then basically pumping in, I don't know, 3 to 4 times as much money I initially put in on the way down, so not even at the lows, and I had to trade around to basically do well. So I mean, me holding Litecoin has actually been my worst, the worst thing for my portfolio, which shouldn't be a shocker. I mean, unless you bought at the lows and kind of flipped it correctly, there's been a lot of stuff that outperformed. Like for me, I think when I initially got in, everyone was so pumped about Solana. I knew that was kind of the one I wanted to get next cycle, but I ended up not waiting and not buying it. I ended up getting obsessed and becoming like a Litecoin bag holder.
Yeah, well, it's tough. I never liked the prior cycle winners that ran really hard because they struggle so much around all-time highs, just like Litecoin and XRP from 2021, because they were 2017 cycle winners. They have so many people wanting to get out at break even that bought the top or near the top the prior cycle.
No, it's true. It was the biggest first time mover. It was the play to get in up to that point where you said it assumed it would struggle, you know?
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing that's repeating now, just on a longer time frame. It's like Solana, Cardano, Dogecoin, they all rallied early. And that's what I was thinking. And then I thought eventually XRP and Litecoin would move, but I thought Litecoin would move way sooner and position super early, just like everyone else.
At one point, my portfolio was set up real nice, and it was like I owned a ton of stuff off the lows, like XLM, XRP. I had Litecoin, I had Bitcoin Cash, and I think at one point I was majority of it was in XRP, but you know, I ended up flopping around, which was working good in the immediate term. But then I ended up funneling everything in Litecoin. That's what made it tougher this cycle for me. But yeah, overall, like Litecoin, Bitcoin, again, I don't pay a ton of attention to it either. I charted this out a decent amount of time ago, and so far it's played out kind of how I thought, but obviously everything's taking longer, and we did not get a straight pump, and we kind of get this more consolidation. But I think it's more bullish that we're up in here and we're kind of trading sideways. To me, it's kind of created a nice rounded bottom.
Yeah, but it makes sense to me. It's interesting because you're talking about 2017. I can pull up this again, but we have the same type of building bullish divergence that we saw back in 2017 on CMF. At least we had this pump and dump because of the pre-halving thing. A lot of people speculated on Litecoin with leverage, and it drove price up. But the same type of long, drawn-out correction with building accumulation is what we're seeing right now over the last few years.
It looks like it's kind of consolidating above too, which is pretty nice. But
I don't know.
It's different.
I actually think the bump will be more extreme than 2017. And more extreme than XRP, but we'll see. That the recent drop is kind of annoying. We
No,
were
like
following.
what is it? You talk about the miners selling out like a record amount of their Litecoin.
Yeah, I mean, it's an anomaly in crypto history that we've ever seen a proof of work asset be sold off this heavily from miners. Like Bitcoin miners still hold 11% of the supply, and Dogecoin miners held 26% of the supply in 2021 before the rally and dumped heavily, which capped price. Like, who, if it gets momentum, like ETF Catalyst or this fundamental increase in network activity, like I don't, hodlers can cap price, but historically, if you just look at their behavior, they don't do the best with timing tops. A lot of people just hold on forever. But if we had this crazy rally in 2017 where miners sold super aggressively into it in 2021 and continued to dump all the way through 24, like if it gets momentum, I think it's very vulnerable to that positive feedback loop. And what's also weird is network activity has tracked price since 2013, really. This is just transactions. But if you overlay this with the chart, it's pretty like
Yeah,
one to
this is
one.
this is like Master, right? His
Yeah,
network
kind of like
model,
this.
kind of.
His are a lot higher because he's using relative valuations against Bitcoin, like looking at Litecoin versus Bitcoin network activity. But I pay attention to this chart because I know this transaction activity is organic because I've gone through all the transaction data and looked at, okay, is this real transaction volume or are these speculative transactions to exchanges? And it really hasn't changed over the entire history. Most of this is real organic increase in network activity from the catalyst that I thought always was going to drive that. And so it's trading at the most discounted price on a historical basis, and I think it's because miners sold so aggressively and there's been so many other coins that people are attracted to, and there's no marketing for Litecoin. But if price rallies and we get this increase in network activity that I think can come, potential, ETF inflows,
Yeah.
it
You
can
think
move
we
like
just go
2013.
ballistic?
It's
Yeah, that's like
possible.
the chart I used to draw all the time, like years ago. Connecting that high to that high to that low, and then running the channel out to the right, and just expecting this insane move to the top of the channel, like 2017. But
Yeah,
I
I don't know
mean,
if
like
it'll
you
be that
said, like it.
extreme,
Yeah.
but the 2013 fractal is near identical to what we've done uh, the last few months. It did actually come back down.
Oh yeah, a little triangle
I should
formation. Yeah.
have, yeah, I should have gone to the like daily time frame, but we did. It's falling precisely, but I've never seen anyone look at this on X. But
That's
wick
funny,
all
yeah,
the way
because
back down.
that 2013 kind of move, whatever, that was when Bitcoin ran the fib extension of the 0.786. And
Yeah,
that for that top right there, that initial top was a 618.
for Bitcoin.
Yeah, for Bitcoin. And
Yeah,
that's the same kind of setup. It was because I had a theory a while back where that's what I was expecting before the last bear market. I was expecting that fib extension to the 786, and it never transpired.
I see. It's hard
I
to
think
know.
could have been a 618 like now. I gotta look at that again because that's not the
For
best
sure.
correlation.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. If it can relatively outperform some of these others, it's hard with all this crypto reserve stuff and this hype, pump and dump,
Yeah, a
random.
lot of more money is going to get. Well, I mean, overall, it's going to be overall utility coins. And as far as the Bitcoin reserves or whatever, I'm kind of surprised Litecoin wasn't mentioned, considering they mentioned other. Well, I don't know actually. I guess there's an ETF proposed. No, well, Litecoin's like first up on deck as far as like most likely approved next. So it is kind of surprising that they didn't mention it.
I think
Because I
that
mean, they mentioned ETH, Bitcoin, Solana, which is farther back on the approval, and I don't know if Cardano or the other one they mentioned are even anywhere near the ETF route. Like I don't think
Well,
there's futures for ADA on. No, there might be now.
all those guys, there's like really centralized influential figures for all those coins, right? Brad Garlinghouse, Charles Hoskinson. For Solana, there's a lot of like hedge fund guys and very wealthy people like Mike Novogratz that were super involved. So I think they have political lobbying ability or connections with the Trump team. I think that's why those specific coins were listed, not because of some like comprehensive framework for like, okay, what's the most fair way to do this. I think it was like everyone pitching Trump's kids and Trump's team on what coins they wanted because they owned a lot of those coins and want them to pump. That makes more sense to me. Just based on what happened with the meme coin stuff, the Sunday announcements, right? Why the only reason you do it on a Sunday is because it's illiquid.
And right, and the fact that they announced the really short term, like, was it last Thursday when they announced the White House crypto summit on Friday? It was like really short term. It seems like they're manipulating the market a little bit.
Yeah, and all the coins they recommended were on like David Sacks's top coins that he owns. So
yeah, I suppose he doesn't own it anymore, right? But yeah, they were his favorites.
Well, they're all in his fund. Like they're the top assets owned by whatever his fund is. So I don't know how he doesn't. Obviously, there's a conflict of interest to me, even if he doesn't personally own them. If it's owned by one of his companies,
right?
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, but who knows? That's just what it seems like to me. I could be wrong. But yeah, oh well, it is what it is, and can't change it. Maybe if like when price rallies, it'll become popular, and then it would be added.
Yeah.
Just lobby Eric Trump to get him to buy some, so he's an incentive.
I know. Master should start spamming Eric Trump heavily.
I think he already does.
I believe it. Man. He's like Litecoin's biggest advocate.
Yeah.
There was one guy that was like, I remember it was a long time ago. He'd like post something like, I'm gonna post Litecoin every day until Elon Musk sees it or something like that. I don't know if that guy's still doing that.
He still does it. Yeah. What do you think of on these pair charts? Last question, because I don't want to keep you too long, but like LTC Solana.
That looks like a little inverted head and shoulders, huh?
Yeah, it looks like that, and then temporary news-driven retracement, but I would expect continuation here. This looks like the most bullish out of the Trump coin pairs or the reserve.
Yeah,
pairs.
how does the ADA look? Yeah, you can pull it up.
It was looking good until that announcement. Now it's like totally back down to this higher time frame support.
That actually, no, it looked, yeah, it did. I'd say it was looking really good until that last flush.
Yeah, but who knows? The new stuff the crypto reserve stuff could fade away. To me, it was like an announcement of an announcement or a previous announcement. They already talked about these, a re-announcement.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. Honestly, I think what I care about more than the reserve is just kind of like hopefully like the SEC, and maybe they like announce some type of framework for like regulatory clarity in the future. And I think that, to me, that would be the biggest catalyst, because I mean, I think Litecoin stands almost alone as far as being a really clean launch, fair launch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't do marketing, they don't put a bunch of money into it. They're not Charlie Lee doesn't own anymore.
Yeah,
and it's more stayed alive based on its merit, not anything else. So to me, as long as we get a clear regulatory clarity, I think I'd be kind of more interested in that. You know, what you should do on that is, for me, if I'm looking at that chart, is that first low on 80 looks like in June. Get a parallel
This
channel.
low?
No, the first one in the beginning of the chart
Oh,
history. Yeah, I would drop from that low.
here, maybe you could do it.
Let me pull it up. It's Litecoin USD/ADA.
Yeah. I actually think the ETF could be bigger than crypto reserve because the crypto reserve would have to be passed by Congress, right?
Say that again. Oh,
Like,
yeah, you're right.
So it could take a long, long time, and once people realize that, and if it doesn't get passed, right, there's a lot of uncertainty. Whereas with an ETF, if it's approved and people can buy it, they might do that right away.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, it kind of looks bad. But then again, I don't. Maybe it's not good, but I don't really chart
Yeah, like this.
pairs that often.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of it.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of it. It doesn't look phenomenal to me by any means. Which kind of, I don't know. At one point, I owned a lot of ADA, but I think that was last cycle, and I didn't know much about it. I still don't even know what it does. I don't know
think
what half
anyone
the things
does.
do. I don't
Nobody
know
that owns it knows what it does.
Yeah, I got into crypto and was drawn in to Litecoin for the whole narrative thing that I told you in the past, like regulatory clarity, commodity super cycle, stuff like that, where I was expecting gold and silver to outperform, which they have been doing well, but ultimately, I think I'm at least hoping for a lot of stuff we discussed.
Well, cool. Thanks for hanging out. I guess we'll just wait and see if this like $135, $140 level can break, or at least we can recover off the lows here.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Bitcoin tomorrow or the day after or whatever kind of rallies up to above last week's candle and kind of retraces, and I guess we kind of see what we can get out of that White House summit. And I don't normally pay attention to stuff like that, but it's pretty clear the market as a whole with these last weeks and stuff. It's very sensitive, especially with say the whole bull market, according to the way majority of people analyze the market, is on the brinks of failing or changing on a drastic measure. It seems like people are scared and they're kind of grasping at anything that they can get. So we'll see.
What's your prediction for that whatever summit or thing on Friday? What do you think they'll say?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what they'll say. I have no idea what it's about. But for me, like, as soon as they mentioned it, beyond the timing of them, what seems like they were almost trying to like save the market and then go through with on Trump's word on what he wanted out of the crypto market. I kind of view it as like, I initially thought of all the other summits and how Bitcoin reacted to it. And I mean, I feel like if you could pull up a chart and time out all the different little Bitcoin summits, Ethereum summits, or whatever, we usually dump pretty hard.
Yeah. Yep.
That was kind of my initial, like, great, another one of these. But I mean, what I'm optimistically thinking is that some type of regulatory framework or whatever, which may crush a lot of different alts and may rally a lot of clean crypto or utility tokens, hoping for
Yeah.
something like that happening, and that kind of setting the stage of people who didn't previously price in an environment that is, to me, what's obviously coming. But then again, I wouldn't expect alts to be in any type of reserve, nation reserve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For
So
sure. I do think it was a way to save somebody's bags. Like Cardano was down so much. Like
yeah,
70% loss.
I don't know if it's like, what is it Don Alt says, which I think is brilliant, the crime cycle,
Oh,
crime season.
yeah.
I don't know if it just is something strictly like that, where it was just outright blatant crime, which may have been, or it may have been like Trump wanting something out of his presidency, out of crypto, and him doing everything he can to accomplish that, which may be the case. I'm more so hoping that's the case. In long term, I don't think that's good, but short term, medium term, I think it's good. And but at the same time, I think any type of regulatory clarity is everything that I've been looking and hoping for, because anyone holding any type of clean token should be happy long term with that kind of thing. And it seems like, I mean, I think with the big rally we had right when I think Trump won and he fired Gensler and put in a new chair, and you saw all these altcoins run, and at the same time you saw all these shitcoins start their basically bear market.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of leaning that's what people are expecting, and it seems like now we're kind of just going sideways, kind of waiting for something like that. So I'm hoping that it's less crime season and then feeling like the pressure time wise to get the ball rolling.
It would be nice. Like that. It'd be nice
and
to
that's
see something more market neutral.
Yeah, and that's kind of, like I said, or like what we both discussed, is something that we want, and something that long term would be fantastic. At least I think so. I mean, I would love a big cleansing of the market, and for things to head more towards how things should be. At least in my view, like, because I've always viewed these meme stocks, I've hated them. To me, when I initially started trading, I started trading penny stocks, and it was on the pink sheets and the OTC BP, and to me it's just the same thing, and I hate it, and I don't know if it was just a nice big distraction for them to let it go as long as it did, and for a lot of these tokens that I do like, a lot of these Dino coins or utility coins, to be in a long consolidation to where, say, smart money has been accumulating, and a lot of the retail money is just getting wiped, trading and expecting some type of meme coin super cycle or whatever,
Yeah, I think that's primarily what has happened. The meme coin super cycle is kind of funny. The speech from Murad was
he was one of the guys that blocked a while back. There's like certain guys that, like, if I think they pop up in my feed and I don't want it like infiltrating my mind in any regard, I'll just block him, because I just think he's just leading everyone to the slaughterhouse. And not me, or not a lot of people that can see through it, but as far as everything's kind of lining up to be exactly what I've wanted for years now. I feel like everything's kind of playing out, and the only thing that's been scary is this massive consolidation, this sideways volatility that's just been crushing. So
for sure, I'm kind of bullish because of the macro stuff that's going on. Do you pay attention to that at all? I think oil's about to break. It looks like oil's about to break down here, which unless we're in like a deflationary spiral, should be good because inflation will come down, and oil is a core component in everything. And so you can get lower inflation, like PCE numbers or CPI numbers, which the market would react bullishly to. And then you're seeing the 2-year Treasury yield drop quite a bit, and so the market's pricing in, 50 basis points more rate cuts than a few days ago. I think all those things can be short-term really bullish for risk assets, combined with the sentiment,
Oh yeah.
like extreme panic, when we could see, resumption, like basically pausing on the tariffs, maybe resolution in the war, and then the narrative around what the Fed's going to do, injecting liquidity, lowering interest rates, and potentially returning to QE. Like all those things can come together at the same time, especially if they have cover from lower inflation.
A lot of that stuff's so hard for me to follow because like I'll follow some guys that focus like was it Fajal? I forget, I don't know how you say his name. But there's a lot of guys that I'll follow that focus on that kind of stuff, and I feel like I'm sure you've put the time in, but I haven't put the time in to line everything up to be able to look at it and think that I have any type of edge in any regard.
Yeah, for sure.
With that kind of stuff. Because also, like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised, and I almost expect the disconnection from crypto and equities. So like for me, like I wouldn't even want to get too obsessed with something like that, because I think that the landscape is going to change, and I think like stuff like Litecoin or any of these coins that are in these long sideways consolidations or hopefully accumulation patterns, they could see a massive bull with equities going down, especially if it's deemed a commodity like Litecoin. So I try not to get too whatever on that, but I don't take away anyone else's edge or thoughts on that. I just
for sure. Yeah, I focus on it because I have to understand the context of how these like what's actually driving the prices. So I've been focused so heavily on that since like 2016, 2017, and it has helped me through these cycles. And I'd say so like macro focus is probably one, and then combining that with sentiment analysis, looking at what the public's thinking about the macro opinion, seeing where they diverge from my own opinion, and that's kind of my edge. And then I would look at individual fundamentals of cryptocurrencies. That's how I came to the understanding of Litecoin and Bitcoin. I needed to understand what exactly I was buying, how it worked, what were people saying about it versus reality. And that I in 2017 thought Litecoin, Bitcoin would scale through multiple chains, and then just waiting for the macro picture to align with like the fundamental value prop actually being adopted, which is creating my bullishness. And then I look at technicals too to some extent, but I wouldn't rely on them in isolation. But everyone has their own understanding, like whatever interests them, and figure out what works for them specifically. So
so like for me to figure out where that's where I would get more confused to figure out like when a trend actually ends outside of sentiment or something like that, like I had my I don't know if I'm still sharing a chart, but my daughter was drawing on the chart.
No worries.
But this is like, here, let me go to this. This is something I didn't mean to. But I called the top in equities on Twitter, but it wasn't through anything other than this. I was just saying it hit resistance, and it happened to be where we did and where we kind of topped out. So this is something that like where I'd view a good reason why equities have slowed down. For me, like I said, there's lots of other reasons why, fundamental reasons. But this was something that I was looking at. And
You think it could break through that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it can, but that's another thing where I kind of expected us to hit resistance in the top there, and we
Hmm.
did. But I've also had that theory that we'll go through a period where that's why I don't know. Maybe we do dump down lower, and the cycle's kind of looked at as broken, and we do run those lower range for for Litecoin or whatever. But I've kind of had this theory where I've thought that we're gonna equities would top, and then we'd get regulatory clarity right and the timing and start like a crypto cycle um and
Hmm.
possibly,
Break
and that's
there.
why I was so interested in holding Litecoin because
Gotcha.
it's a commodity. But yeah, I mean I think that's where I pointed it out. And we came back up and then we hit a new high, but it was a slightly higher high.
It
Basically a
would
double
get kind
top
of
and then
crazy
come
if
back
we
down.
did break through that channel. I
Yeah, I
think
would say that could be the extended wave 5 or whatever, or the final parabolic move.
you would naturally
For
expect that at the end of a long-term credit cycle, or at least that's my theory, that blow-off tops are most likely at the very end stages of a longer-term credit cycle. It happened in like before the Great Depression, and then you got the um. I just lost my train of thought because I was pulling up this chart. But we'll see. I think if it does break higher, on most bearish sentiment in history, there's not much liquidity, not many people selling. The price is vulnerable to a pretty rapid rise, and if that happens, likely Bitcoin follows and
right,
could be
something
quite
I
insane.
noticed too. I know it was years ago when I was charting it, but majority of the previous cycles kind of resolved in what looked like a massive rising wedge,
Hmm.
and it wasn't like they topped either at the top of the rising wedge. Most of them blew it out on the top
Yeah,
side.
broke through it. Hmm.
Yeah, so they did the kind of move, boom, 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 and then I think a lot of people thought like, oh, hey, this is where it's done, and this lines up with that extended fifth, 130, 150, 160, whatever. But I think that's where, say, if we got that extended move, where we can get that initial final blow off. But I know we've had tons of cycles that basically resulted in that kind of rising wedge move. I think this one briefly did it, but we'll see. I know 2017 did it in more of a blow off fashion, I think. See right here? I don't know if
Hmm.
I'm still sharing it,
Yeah, you
but
are.
this is something I've been watching for a while. Um, Everything kind of forms what looks like a rising wedge, like a good, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everything's done, and then we had that final blow off,
That's what.
and that's something we are actually, similarly, just in a bigger fashion. We're doing that rising wedge form, and technically, when this channel broke, and we had that retest right there. That's the top of the channel. I could draw the whole thing. That's where we got the measured move to here, and that's people think we topped, or this would be if we do get the extended fifth, that's where people think we top, and then we get that blow off similar to 2017. It's just the structure's so much larger, and it's a lot more time wise taken into consolidation. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I mean, that's also. I have higher targets or whatever, but I had that. I think last time I was on here, I talked about my. It was basically like $460,000 Bitcoin.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know
That
if
would
that
be
happens.
insane. Yeah.
I know this next move up. I do plan on taking a lot off if we get it,
Hmm.
and then if we consolidate and get structure or whatever, maybe I'll add some for that final move or whatever. But interesting enough, like I said, crypto has topped like in I think this last one, 2017 it did that. This one It basically topped on where people would think it'd be this move up, this next move. But I've always kind of put it more keen to 2017. I don't know what 2013 we didn't really get that. I mean, I could probably force it, but we didn't really get that rising wedge pattern. But yeah, this is the one.
Thinks that as well. That we'll have a blow off.
Yeah, if I had to guess,
to me, given where we're at right now and how I've never seen a cycle top with not everyone being max bullish at the top. Like even in 2021, in 2017, I was there for those. There was not anywhere near the amount of people panicking. And sentiment was basically positive the whole time. This has been the most wall of worry type cycle we've ever experienced. Where people,
I would agree. People are so damaged from previous cycles and just fear of that. That's another thing. I did it again. Why I did? I hate using this Mac, but this is where everything was flowing so nicely for me with that last theory I had shared. But this is where last time we just blew to the 1.4. This time I think we just went to the 1.2 and then have this move. So maybe it's not the 2.272, but I think similarly we are doing the same thing. And I'd pull up the fibs, but I messed up the chart. I don't know how that would fix it, but I believe this is, this is obviously the one. This is the 1.272, and we're kind of in between, but we have a similar formation. It's just taking a lot more time. There's a lot more structure to it, and it's not as parabolic as the last one. I mean, it's ran the 1.4. So if say in a similar fashion, it's not the 2.272 or whatever, but it could be the 1.78, or it could just be the magical number I've always said, 69K, for 20K. So
yeah.
Who knows?
Exactly, nobody knows, but it's aligning better for me now. So we'll have to wait and see, but it should be fun, unless it really is over. That it would be the only cycle where everyone de-risked at the top.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
right, like we're so close to the top.
If I didn't mess my thing up, or I'd pull up the fib extension, because I pull from here to here to here. I believe we start, I think it's a 618 is when we start this consolidation, and then we move up to the 786. And the 786, I think for this one, I don't remember what it is. I think it's different depending on what exchange you pull up, between like 140 and 168 or something. So I think that really expecting somewhere up there to be a big pivotal spot, maybe we do come all the way down or whatever, but I don't think so. I think if we do hit that, it'll be one of those levels where tons of people sell, it consolidates better than they think, we get a fake breakdown, and then we get that final move. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, to me, it's looking like a nice little rising wedge.
If you just pull the fractal from the end of 2017, like you were comparing
I've done that a bunch, yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty identical.
Right. Except it topped at the 1.272 fib extension versus the 1.4. But yeah, I mean, that's what I've been expecting. I thought everything was working out cleanly, but then we had this big, pullback off the 1.272 when I was expecting the 1.4. But it's hard pulling targets. At the same time, we could have a blend of these two where we get that, and then we get that final push up to the top, which is technically, the 1.618 or the 786 extension off these lows. There's a decent amount that lines up there, but
for sure
it'll be hard. I mean, I think if anything's taught, what I've learned this cycle is to not compare it too much to previous cycles, even though there's a lot of confluence. I think you kind of just got to sell big resistance and try to play it and try to get a good good pullback, pay attention to the structure, get a good risk versus reward to play the other side, or wait for a real like structure to form a flush and then to grab it. It's almost like you gotta, everything's taught me this cycle is you really gotta, every level that people want to FOMO at, you gotta get out and wait for it to
Extreme
play out.
patience.
Yeah, exactly.
Way more time-based capitulation than ever because it's taking way longer. So
Which is what you want, you know. At the same time, that's healthy price action. That's all we could hope for. But I think for me, what's hurt me so far is I've had a lot of the targets get hit, and it's played out a lot of the way that I wanted it to. But because things took longer, I didn't necessarily take profit like I should, and it's happened consistently to me. But something that held me back this time was the final. I thought it was going to go to the 1.4 before we had this retracement, and it didn't. And I think a lot of people expected higher before the retracement. So there's a lot of reasons why people are spooked. But I mean, if you're just looking at the chart and you're looking for invalidations and whatnot, I mean, everything's been trading pretty clean, and we haven't gotten many invalidations. The only thing that we've gotten is new structure, and I think a lot of it lines up with the Bitcoin ETFs and larger institutional money and futures and time decay. And you know, I think things have changed and things have matured, and this is the kind of market that I was hoping for. So at the end of the day, I kind of just got to be grateful and more lenient, because Bitcoin's working out as it should. And if you know, our fundamental reasoning for why Litecoin should speculation should return to it, and boomers should be interested in it, everything's lining up. You know, the ETF, we've gotten 2 ETFs, and the third one's going to be Litecoin after Bitcoin and ETH. I think we should be happy considering the structure.
If Bitcoin gets a blow off top, like that chart, I'd say the odds of my thesis coming true are like very, very high, because
of the network activity, right?
Imagine how many people will be FOMO buying and FOMO trying to get rid of their coins. There's like 30 million hodlers holding coins in cold storage. I think like 50% would be trying to take profits in a small window of time.
So for me, I don't understand. Like, I got into crypto right here. I hated crypto. I didn't want anything to do with it. But when we got this really good risk versus reward, I had charted out. This is when I got into everything. So I only got into it because I saw a good risk versus reward. But like, so I don't understand a ton of stuff, and I've never cared to, because like I pretty much just pay attention to the charts. So your thesis basically is what I wondered.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, what I was wondering is, if I understand it right, is it completely dependent on people holding their own coins, cold storage or whatever, that have to transact on chain to drive it? Or do you think the fact that a lot of the liquidity now is going to be more based on like futures or ETFs that banned on chain? I just don't understand it.
Yeah, no. Part of that's right. Like, a part of the reason why fees have been lower so far is that you're not seeing these crazy parabolic rises like we've seen in past cycles, where you do get like retail FOMO. I think they've mainly been in meme coins that do that. But I'm just going on based on what drove fee levels high in the prior cycles and what led to Litecoin increasing its network activity from that congestion on the Bitcoin chain. So it is primarily driven by speculators sending coins to exchanges. That's why fees went to $50 in 2017. There was so much, FOMO and like fear of missing the blow off, right? For fear of trying to get out really quickly, that drove a ton of people to try to send coins to exchanges all at the same time. But what I'm saying is that that hasn't really happened. Long-term holders haven't had that like insane rush to try to all sell it at once like they have in previous vertical rises like in 2020 or in 2017. And based on the on-chain analysis that other people have done, we have more Bitcoin long-term holders like holding coins in cold storage than ever before. And we have long-term hodler levels higher than 2020. I know personally that there's a ton of people that were buying in 2017 that didn't sell in 2021 and also still haven't sold here. But I think high enough price targets, if we get a vertical rise, would incentivize a large percentage of them to all transact on the chain to try to send coins to the exchanges to drive fees up. Plus, you do have organic, real transaction activity happening on Bitcoin, right? Like average order value for merchant processors for Bitcoin's like $2,000. Part of the reason why Litecoin's increase in network activity isn't driving a huge price increase is because every time fees rise, they rise to like 40, 50 bucks, and Litecoin steals a lot of the low value transactors on the Bitcoin chain. And then they stay on Litecoin forever and they never go back. It's kind of like when you get priced out of a city, you might move to a suburb and then you're not going to go move back to the city. Like it's fine, you've already moved. The network effects are sticky. So Litecoin's maintain those users, but if we get fee levels high enough to start pricing out those $1,000, $2,000 transactions, like it's worth so much more in terms of market cap or price. And I'm saying there's, based on my own blockchain analysis, the vast majority of Bitcoin transactions on the non-speculative side are between 1 and 10K. And if we price those out, they're likely to go to Litecoin because that's the only thing that's happened historically. Like these real people that are actually using Bitcoin, maybe in other countries, maybe in like Myanmar, Venezuela, or they're trying to get money into their country, they will have to use something else immediately, and they've always used Litecoin. But if those transactions migrate at higher value ranges, given how illiquid Litecoin supply is and how much that represents, like there's $1 billion+ in daily transaction volume that's actually happening like around $10,000 and under. So if Litecoin can take that market share from Bitcoin, it will be like $1 billion in buy pressure in a very short amount of time, which is insane for a tiny market cap asset with that supply restriction. And then you get that reflexivity, right? ETF inflows, people chasing it, retail chasing it because it's going vertical.
The narrative too, yeah.
Yeah, and the narrative is, that's why it's so important for me, is I'm trying to understand how this technology works, how it scales. That's why I got into Bitcoin at first. I needed to understand how it worked, and I always thought, even though nobody agreed with me, that Lightning Network wouldn't scale the chain for multiple different reasons. Credit doesn't scale money, and you still have fee pressure even with Lightning Network. You have to settle at some point. So everyone called me kind of an idiot back in 2017 through today, but Lightning Network had like no growth, even though it had hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. And then the Bitcoin Cash side of the argument, I disagreed with as well, for other reasons. Just that larger and larger blocks don't scale the chain either, because at some point people can't run nodes, and then that kills the chain. Like if you can't, Bitcoin's not trying to compete with Visa and do all these transactions. It's a money that needs to remain decentralized if it's going to actually fulfill its value prop. So the most likely path for growth was always just utilizing another Bitcoin chain. There's nothing unique about the first BTC chain or the name or the chain history. It's really about network effects and users. And so far over the last 7 years or 8 years, that is the only reason why Litecoin transactions are now getting close to Bitcoin's, is because we've had fee pressure. This cycle from ordinals and runes, last cycle just from speculators. That's caused Litecoin to grow. It wouldn't have gotten to this point without that, but the market doesn't understand that. Like they think it's gold, silver. Yeah, that is a narrative. It's pretty similar, but in the real world, you can't have a second gold. You have one gold. It's a physical item. There's no fundamental difference between Litecoin and Bitcoin. You could call it Bitcoin Chain 2 or come up with a different ticker. But that's what the network effects are telling me, is that it is Bitcoin, right? This hash rate differences are pretty meaningless. They're both overly secure because speculators are driving price up, which is attracting hash rate. So really there's not much value in one specific chain over the other long term. Like, people are just fantasizing about BTC and the narratives that have been created around it by marketing people. But in the far future, I imagine if these are adopted, people will arbitrage security for cost, and they won't care if they have LTC or BTC, just like they don't care if they have dollars or yen. They'll just get paid, and the purchasing power should be stable at some point.
Yeah, I think
So
that really
yeah.
depends more on global, right? Because I know in America, it doesn't have to. That doesn't have to go that way. I mean, it doesn't have to be utilized in that fashion. It really is kind of more getting pushed as the digital gold.
Yeah.
It's not really the purpose per se, you know? So
well, the purpose for most people is number go up. It's just like, that's why people are buying it. They think it's going to go up, but they forget what drives price long term. Is the government really just going to buy everyone's bags? Like, what's going to induce higher and higher pools of capital to continue to speculate on it? I have to bet on what's the reality, like the value. What does it actually do? Like, why is it a more valuable money than dollars? Why are people using it right now instead of dollars? People always argued with me that, oh, stablecoins are getting popular, we'll just use those instead of Bitcoin or Litecoin. It's faster, cheaper, whatever. But people don't, right? People don't, when Bitcoin gets expensive, they don't go and use stablecoins. They don't go and use ETH. The people actually getting the value prop from it go and use Litecoin if Bitcoin's too expensive. And yeah, the Western world doesn't have much of a use for Bitcoin other than speculating on it. And it's possible that it just becomes a speculative asset that everyone collectively believes in. But I don't know. At that point, it's like a meme coin to me. It's like
right.
Everyone just believes in something.
I think long term, what you're saying works out, but whether or not like this next pump or whatever, you know, this next say we do get the extended fifth or whatever, whether that's what's actually being pushed and why the price goes up, I don't know. I guess we'll
I'm just saying, if it imports that middle value transaction volume that's actually relying on Bitcoin, right? Like today, people are using Bitcoin. Like I think it's like $1 billion to $2 billion being transacted on the chain daily between $1,000 and $10,000. They're not using stablecoins to do that. They're making like real purchases with Bitcoin. And we've seen it already happen at the lower value ranges, where when it gets to be like $10 to $50 transaction fees, people migrate to Litecoin. And I'm saying, if that same thing happens at the $1,000 to $10,000 range, which is likely given the on-chain distribution of cold storage hodlers, how many there are, and the speed at which I'd expect them to all be rushing to sell, the people primarily using Bitcoin that aren't speculating would be forced to migrate. And that amount, $1 billion in transaction value migration to an $8 billion asset, given the supply restriction that we talked about, like there's no miner reserves to sell, there's just hodlers. It can happen overnight, which is why I think it's possible, if that comes to fruition, you can see a vertical rise and then a narrative that more aligns with what I'm saying, right? That would catalyze a narrative change. People should talk about Litecoin passing Bitcoin in transactions and usage, and if fees are $300, I'm sure that'd be a huge topic. But maybe not. I could be wrong. But like we were talking about far forward-looking expectations, right? The market's betting on Bitcoin only being this dominant money, even though the last 7 years is painting a different story, but nobody's paying attention to the transaction data. Like Michael Saylor's talking about.
You think it's being more pushed as like money, or you think it's being more pushed as gold?
Well,
like
it's being pushed as a speculative safe haven asset, but really it's a risk-on asset that's just, rising on positive momentum and a narrative. But yeah, it's being pushed as digital gold. But at the same time, people are still using it as money to some extent. I think people forget about that.
Yeah. That's why
And
I think it is. I feel like it's value proposition that you're talking about is more prevalent in different countries that are already having trouble for with their currencies versus
for
the United
sure, it
States and the
is.
dollar.
Yeah, it's more prevalent in Western, like Western countries don't really need Bitcoin.
Yeah,
It's
like
not worth the risk.
but our boomer parents, I don't think will buy Bitcoin because they think it's because of your funnel. They'll buy it more based on like, oh, the world's what Larry Fink is trying to push.
Yeah,
The world's
exactly.
collapsing. Like I need to hold gold or whatever.
Those narratives only make sense because price keeps going up. And if you see relative outperformance in a different coin, like why would you buy BTC? Like that's the same thing all the retail people are doing right now. They're like, I'm not going to buy Bitcoin. It doesn't have as much upside. So if Bitcoin stalls out or does rally, but Litecoin's going vertical, I think you'd see way more speculative money.
Yeah, if it gets the ETF and we start rallying hard, and it's like one of the only ETFs. That's why it's so hard because I think they'll approve Solana and all these other dumb ETFs
probably
that will take a chunk of the market share. But for me, it's kind of like, at least for now, the time being, it has to be more pushed as digital silver
for sure.
to get real boomer money pushing it. But also, like you said, if it's a combination of that's what the boomers are buying, and that's the reason why the boomers are dumping their money into it soon. But at the same time, you get that, or the fees are too high on Bitcoin, and everyone rushes over to Litecoin. I think it's just kind of like a good combination for
for sure. The market will come up with whatever narrative it wants. I'm sure people will see it differently depending on their perspective. But if that transaction migration happens, it will pump the price a lot, and it wouldn't be able to be seen by traders or technical analysts.
They won't know why. They'll just go with the narrative, right? They won't know why.
You wouldn't be able to see that because I don't think anyone does or anyone's expecting it. And so it'd be like a black swan event in a sense, because the market should be able to see it, but nobody's talking about it. And so it wouldn't be evident by like positioning. You wouldn't see like people accumulate Litecoin for that reason.
Right.
It wouldn't be evident in the charts. It would just go vertical. But I'm not betting 100% on that. I'm not saying it has to happen. But if we get the vertical rise, I think it's more likely.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll see.
Yeah. I just got that noise in my AirPods that they're about to die. So.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for keeping you so long, but I appreciate you.
Yeah, it was cool. Thanks for having me on. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe if Litecoin does start moving up, you can give us updated technical analysis. If you're down. Okay. All right. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right, man. Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I didn't mean to take that long. I thought we were going to do 30 minutes, but ended up just wanting to ask him questions and having a natural conversation. Hopefully I didn't make him feel like he was forced to stay here. But yeah, appreciate you guys staying here. Super late for me. Probably gonna head to bed. I think there's a good chance of the surrounding tomorrow. I want to see this next leg up and buy volume. Liquidate these shorts or force them to close and buy into thin liquidity. But we'll see. Have a good night, guys. I'll see you all tomorrow.
In the ever-changing world of cryptocurrency, staying informed is your greatest asset. The Litecoin Forecast brings you daily insights, expert analysis, and cutting-edge predictions. From technical and fundamental analysis to macroeconomic trends, we've got you covered. Don't let the future of finance catch you off guard. Subscribe now and stay ahead with the Litecoin Forecast.